right. You guys ready to go?
All right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I was a little bit of a technical difficulties as always. But thank you guys for joining us again this Wednesday evening for episode 19 of the Up Dialogue. Apparently, there's a dog who needs to let people know that there's somebody at the door. Um. So yeah, we're joining up again today to kind of discuss more game industry news. Um, primarily what to do and how to kind of function as a studio when you don't have a big success. When
No, dudes,
you're
the
just kind of
Empire's pretty
getting
chill.
by.
Maybe
So to
you
speak.
could, join it or something.
Thank you for the 4-month sub, Rodicious. Appreciate it, man, and welcome to the show. Welcome, Old Man Garrus. Welcome, Harper, Moon Girl, all the usual suspects. Welcome back to the discussion. But yeah, so our discussion today is going to primarily revolve around studios studios that are just getting by. And then honestly, there are a lot of studios like that. There are plenty of studios out there who are making. I'm not necessarily they're not making great games. It's just sometimes they don't take off like they would have thought. And one of the ones that comes to mind as I was kind of digging into this topic is a studio out of believe it is Norway. I can't remember the exact city, but the game studio is. Let me look this up real quick. Hold on. I can't remember these things off the top of my head. Getting old. Henchman and Goon. There we go. I started with an H. Couldn't
I
have
just,
that. Like,
I had
what was
it.
that?
I had it. I just let you struggle with it.
Oh, appreciate that.
You bet. Anytime, man.
Yeah, it's Henchman and Goon. It's a small indie studio out of, I believe, it's out of Norway. I can't remember the exact city, but one of these two yahoos will figure it out, I'm sure. And they actually did a GDC talk earlier this year, and they were a studio that was in that position of having made a really good game from my research. It's called Pode, I believe it is. Well, Pode, and then they made, I think, in another one, or they're working on a sequel now. Pode. You guys can kind of look it up. It looks really interesting. And basically, the kind of the gist of their story and kind of similar stories is you still got to keep the lights on. Artists still have to eat, as the talker, the speaker of that particular talk, let us know. Her mom dropped a nugget of wisdom on her. It's like, hey, you still got to eat. You still got to keep the lights on. You still got to pay your rent. There's things that you still have to do. And oftentimes, I think a lot of players maybe don't really think along those lines when they're thinking of like their favorite studios, like Larian or Bethesda or Blizzard or anything, because those are such giants in the industry that I don't want to say they have to work. They don't have to work as hard to make it, but they've kind of already made it. They're a studio that are a known entity. They're a known quantity. They kind of always have work coming in, so to speak. They're always working on something. They have, a bunch of investors. They have money. They don't have to worry about where the money is coming from, for the most part. But for indie studios and smaller studios, they don't have that luxury, and it really is a luxury. Well, it's a luxury in that you don't have to worry about it, but obviously you have to work hard to get to that point. But yeah, smaller studios they really don't have that kind of safety net. They still have to make money in some fashion. And when you've worked on a game, you worked on a product, and you push it to market, and by the market standards, it's a flop. Well, what do you do next? What do you do? He's doing it for selfish reasons. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Pack it up. Pack it up and quit.
No, you don't quit. No, you don't
Oh.
quit, man.
Oh.
Don't quit. You gotta keep going. And that's what the folks at Henchman and Goon did. They kind of buckled down. They took on some other work, did some other things, took on some other projects, English, while still working on Poet at the time. And I think for me the most important piece there there's two pieces. There's number one, you got to take care of yourself. You gotta like her mom told her. I believe the speaker's name, if I can pronounce it properly, and if she ever hears this and I mispronounce it, I apologize. I believe it's pronounced Ingvild Hoppen or Hopen. I think it's Hopen. I don't know. But basically, she was saying how, her mom told her, hey, you still gotta eat, and it's true. We still gotta put food on the table. We still gotta pay our bills. In addition to keeping the lights on in relation to the studio, to the indie studio that we're working for. And I use that as the general way, not us specifically. Although I guess we do fall into that category, don't we?
Which category is that? Is that the we don't have anything to eat category? What?
No, I mean, no. Hopefully we all got something to eat. But, we still got to continue doing work and continue, doing things to keep the lights on, so to speak.
Poor Matt's over there drinking water instead of brandy. I mean,
Matt's living on water and hopes.
Can't even afford to get drunk.
And that's impressive. You can't afford to get drunk. Oof. That takes me back to a college story I might tell later. You think it's water just because it's clearly doesn't mean it's, I mean you're not wrong.
Don't rat me out, Garrus, all right? I thought I could trust you.
Man, could be
that's a big glass you got there, man.
Yeah, that's a really good glass of that potato juice, man.
Rice wine.
Rice wine.
Yeah.
That stuff is actually pretty good. There used to be a really small tangent. There used to be a really good Netflix show on Netflix miniseries about sake and like the distilleries in Japan. I watched it. It was great. Anyway, he seems happier the more he drinks. That's fair. But yeah, so it's definitely
we just learned something here, Rob.
What? What's that?
In our planning meetings, all we need to do is give the guy something to drink. Life becomes much easier for us because he's happier. You see,
I wouldn't say no to a drink during our meetings. A little whiskey, a little scotch. You know what I mean? Oh yeah. Yeah. I can't remember the name, Bro Dishes, but if it ever comes to mind, I will send it to you.
This is all completely in jest for Twitch purposes, by the way. We are not promoting
by the way,
drinking alcohol or any of those things.
Drinking a glass of water. In fact,
I'm an adult. I'm not underage by any means. Yes, it is just water.
Matt's trying to defend his pretend alcoholism. I love it. It's great to fire water. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's again, going back to the topic at hand. It's about keeping the lights on. It's about making sure that you yourself as an individual, but also as a studio, are taken care of. Again, whether that's you guys have to individually pick up jobs on the side, or as a studio pick up jobs on the side. Sometimes you got to do that. And there are plenty of studios who are and have done that in the past. The other thing is success. What does that look like for your studio, for you as an individual developer? What does that look like? Because as we know, the whole adage success is going to be different for everyone. Are you looking to have Larian Studios level success, with Baldur's Gate 3, or Blizzard's of the Coast success with World of Warcraft, or are you making sure that you're keeping your expectations and level of success realistic for you and kind of where you're at in your journey as a developer? And we were actually talking about this prior to going live, and Greg actually brought up a very good definition of success, I think, and I would like to pass the torch over to him so he can dive a little bit more into that.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, yeah, you had a really good good statement for that. So
Well, it really it just comes down to what are you aiming for? You have those pie in the sky things that you aim for. The running joke for us is that our intention is to one day buy out Wizards of the Coast.
yeah, we're gonna do that. By the way,
Okay.
you heard it here, folks. You
Give
heard
us
it
like
first.
3 years. I'm sure we'll get there.
3
You heard it here,
years.
folks. You heard it here first.
3 years and 1 day.
Yeah, 3
Exactly.
years and 1 day.
It'll be done. But it really, it really comes down to everybody's going to have a little different version of what is success to them. But the reality behind it for a game creator, for content creators is, I mean, success is being able to do what you want to do, being able to do what you love doing as a career. So being able to be financially stable, doing the thing that you want to do. For us, that's creating games, story content. So we don't have to have, we don't have to have the most sales. We don't have to have the most money. We don't have to have the best selling game and, top of the market. It's just creating what we need to create to serve our audience, to serve our customers, and be successful at it. And that means being able to make enough to support the studio and support the people that work for the studio.
Yep. I mean, yeah, that's essentially it. And again, yeah, I mean, you hit on a good way to put it, pie in the sky, goals, ideals, and it's good to have those. It's good to shoot for those lofty goals. Never, at least in my opinion, never limit the goals that you have, that you want to achieve. Work towards them, be realistic, but work towards them. If that's something that you really want to achieve, the only person stopping you is you. Not to get all sage-like and shit, but
there's a, we trying to stay on topic here, but Garrus posted something there revolving around Square Enix. Square Enix has been around for a long time.
yes.
And they did post a statement basically with their L&P of losing $2 billion since June of 2023. Now, well, there's a couple of things. Is that truly a loss or is that a decline in sales? There's a question mark there. But
yeah.
And every the big, I mean, Wizards is guilty. They did the same thing with their decline in sales for their print material of about $80 million. They billed it as a loss of 80. In reality, it wasn't a loss of $80 million. It was a decline in sales of $80 million. Doesn't mean they lost $80 million. They lost $80 million of revenue or potential revenue, planned revenue. That doesn't mean the company itself lost $80 million. So.
Yeah, so like the way I explain that is less that they didn't lose it as it spent on failed projects, but rather they just made that much less than what they projected they would.
Admittedly, though, even for a company like Square Enix, I mean, a $2 billion decline.
That's rough.
I think it's
rough.
I think it's fair to say they lost some money.
Yeah, that's a rough hit, man. I mean, first world problems. I mean, you're a studio that can take a $2 billion loss of revenue. I mean, I don't think you're that bad off, but $2 billion is a stupid $2 billion.
Well, there's a really.
I wish I had $2 billion to even lose.
Right?
Well, but there's a really good point in that goes right along with our topic today, and that is cash reserves cash is king.
Yes.
So any company, small or large, and definitely way harder for a small company or a startup, is to have any type of cash reserves. But it's extremely important that you do not over leverage yourself. You can't function properly on debt. You just can't. I mean, the people who think that they're going to borrow their way to success are just dead wrong. You're going to borrow your way to nothing. Bankruptcy. Yep. You lose your ass. But
pretty much, no, I completely agree. And I mean, that's that. There's a whole whole thing. We would talk multiple episodes on the whole topic of debt and borrowing, but we're not going to go into that. We know where that's going. But anyway, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you definitely have to make the decisions, that's going to be beneficial to you as a company, you as a developer, and I'm talking both as a developer working in a studio, but also as an individual developer. If you're struggling to make ends meet, you got to square that away. You got to fix that. But I think again, the core of today's topic is continuing to keep the lights on, continuing to move forward. When and this actually the talk one of the talks that I was listening to with regards to Pode and the studio Henchman and Goon, she explained that they actually kind of saw a reverse of what normally happens whenever a product hits the market. You have a spike in sales. Obviously, it's a new big thing. There's a hoopla about it. You have a spike in sales, and then typically, I don't want to say a sharp decline, but you do have a significant decline, and then it kind of tapers out. And from what she said, and kind of how it happened for them, it was the complete opposite. It kind of based on the market, based on the way the numbers said it should have gone. Pode was a complete failure. But as they did a couple of key things, and this is something also that's very important to indie studios, I feel, and talking about indie studios, us as well. They, as a studio, they made a decision collectively to do a couple of things to keep the lights on. Again, they took on a couple of get out of here. They took on a couple of side projects to keep the lights on and continue to give themselves the ability to work on Pode, or rather after that. Oh, sorry, excuse me. They to work on the next iteration of Pode after that had after the first iteration came out. But they also engaged with their community because they had built a community. They had a community of loyal followers and people who actually, obviously bought the game, who enjoyed it, who enjoys, the studio, and they kept up with that. They didn't just, kind of hole up and like, well, fuck, we fucked up, it sucks, whatever.
So Rob, wait a minute. So
Yep.
you're saying that they failed,
Yeah.
and they didn't give up?
Yeah, I know, right? It's fucking amazing.
Wacky.
What?
Who does that? Who does that in 2023?
I mean, that game failed. Just dump that shit. Move on to something else.
That's right. That's what we do. We don't fucking, failures are not allowed in this fucking channel. No, I'm totally joking. Yeah, they again, and I don't mean, I personally, hearing their story, I don't think they failed. And clearly they ended up bouncing back from that. But again, failure is objective. By all the metrics that you see out there, on things like Steam and other markets, and market numbers and all that jazz, things that I have no clue about. I'll leave that to Greg. They failed. They were an abject failure. Pode was not successful. But again, they did two key things. They put their nose back to the grindstone and got to work, doing what they needed to do to keep the lights on and continue working and continue doing it. Like as Greg pointed out, the thing that they love was great games, but they also kept in close contact with their community, keeping them updated on things and kind of where things were going, which I think is a very, very underrated thing to do. Both if you have a flop of a game or if you have a success. And I hate to keep ringing Larian Studios praises, but that's a studio that did the same thing. Granted, Baldur's Gate 3 was anything but a flop, but even though it was such a massive success, you still see Larian Studios being as communicative as they were, during early access and everything else. They still put out, interviews and things like that. They still have their Twitter account still active. They're still talking with people about the game and, stuff like that. Like they haven't gone silent, and I feel like in certain regards, some studios do that. Especially the smaller ones. Um, but I'm happy to let you guys know that Pode actually bounced back, and again they saw the opposite. They had really crappy launch, but now I mean they've gone on to recoup the cost of creating the game and to get a profit. And now they're working on I believe Pode 2 and a couple of other projects they have in the pipeline. Um, but the simple fact of the matter is, they didn't quit. I know, Greg pointed out they didn't just give up. They didn't say, oh well, fuck it, this didn't work. Let's pack it up, go home, kind of deal.
That's what typically happens, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
especially when it comes to small
Mhm.
entities, and I mean,
I'm
that's the
still
vast
listening. I'll just be right back.
that's the vast majority of us all are small entities. I mean, you start out with a small group of people with an idea, with a plan or a dream or however you want to put it, and you put it together and decide, hey, we're gonna create a game, we're gonna write a book, whatever it happens to be. Most times in this particular genre, it's we're gonna make a game, we'll make this great game, and then when it fails, if it even ever makes it to market, which is a big question right there, because the challenge is not just creating the game. It's then figuring out how do I market this, how do I merchandise it, what do I do with this, and 99%. And there's a lot of people that get that idea going through their head and actually try that. They venture out and decide, you know what, I'm going to create this. I'm going to write a game. Me and my buddies, we've been, whatever it is, TTRPGs, video games, we've been working on these design aspects. We know how to do the programming, we know how to do the VFX. We're going to go and create this game. And it just never comes to fruition. And, that's kind of hand in hand with what I'm talking about with the failure thing is, they failed before they started because they didn't have the motivation and the determination to see it through, and actually go out and do what they needed to do. And that's, part of the story of what we're talking about tonight is what did this studio do? What are some of the things that they did to really become what they are today? Because there's a group of people that, they had education. They had the education piece. They'd go on to school for game design and various other aspects, art. So they had that piece in their pocket, and they had some limited, because they'd been doing some freelance work before that, they had some limited capability when it come to understanding business management, running a small business. But the reality of it is they did not have all the tools that a Larian Studios or whatever, you name it. They didn't have those tools. That was not an option for them. So they took what they had and said, this is what we know how to do. In retrospect, you can always look back on the situation. I mean, there's things that we as a studio are doing right now, and the reason we're doing those things is because that's what we know how to do. Doesn't mean it's the best way to approach it. Doesn't mean it's, there's not a better way to do it. And we'll probably look back on some of the things we're doing now, years from now, and say, maybe not even years, maybe months from now, and say, wow, there had to be a better way to do that. But that's the way we knew at the time. We could have been scared of it. We could have turned around and said, well, we don't know any other way, or we don't know any way, so we're just not going to do it, or we're just not going to take the step, or we're not going to ask questions. We're not going to approach people and try to build this thing. And I think that's the common problem that happens with small studios, is that they just never make it to, not even close to the finish line of generating a product. And then once that development piece is done, figuring out, how do I take this from here I have my product, and then how do I take that and get it to the market?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Oftentimes, and we're lucky to have Greg on as that kind of piece of the business where he thinks of those things. Myself and Matt are, and are definitely not that.
Not quite as business savvy.
Yeah.
I'm just not afraid to ask questions. Let's just be clear on this. I'm just not afraid to ask questions. That's the thing.
Well, no, that's true, but he also inspires us to start asking and thinking along those lines as well, because we have to. I think any and everyone within a studio, no matter how large or small, should be thinking along those lines. It's like, how can I contribute to the success of not just the project that we're working on now, but the success of the studio?
You have to have a desire to build relationships. That's
Yeah.
number one. You have to have a desire to build relationships. And then not just a desire, but you have to have a passion for whatever it is you're doing, because building those relationships is not easy. And sometimes it just takes putting yourself in a really uncomfortable spot, getting out in front of people and finding a way to inspire them to pay attention to actually listen to them.
Yeah.
And
being able to hear no, because you can hear that a lot.
It sucks. Yeah. No is horrible. I
really
hate
does
it.
Suck. It's not fun.
But you get to a point where you realize, and this is going to sound kind of cliche, but the reality of it is every time you hear no, you're just one more step closer to hearing yes.
It's true.
It will come.
Yeah. And you're one step closer. I feel personally that to where you really need to be, because the person or people, because it could be multiple, that say yes to you and your, whatever you're working on. It doesn't have to be game related, but whatever you're working on, are people that see the value in what you're doing, and hopefully either align right out of the gate or come to align with what you're trying to do, and want to see you succeed in that endeavor. They want to see you move towards that and for it to be successful. Anyone that's told you no probably doesn't give a shit, or they don't see what you do.
And just that's the thing is don't
that's the thing. It's okay. That's okay.
But don't ever look at a no as being okay. That door is closed. I mean, now hell no, yeah, maybe. That might
probably, that's probably.
But but just because someone told you, they didn't see what you were trying to show them, or weren't willing to look, or whatever, whatever the answer really is. Don't just completely slam the door and say, okay, yeah, they told me no. I'm not talking to those people again. Don't burn those bridges. It's really what it comes down to. Don't do that unless they give you a reason.
Yeah, unless you have a good reason for burning, then burn that motherfucker down.
And there are people out there that I just will not deal with because it's an affront to my own personal integrity. I just won't do it. But for the most part, I mean, no's fine. I mean, that's an acceptable answer. Yep. It doesn't mean that I am going to accept that answer, because I'm just going to my goal at that point is to find out, okay, where is the disconnect? What do I need to do differently? How do I connect with you?
Yep.
Yeah, and like we were talking about before, like just because like when your game first comes out and it doesn't do super great, that doesn't mean that it's impossible for it to do well even later. Like as Rob was mentioning, like Pode for Henchmen and Goons kind of had a kind of started catching on after a bit, and one game that I'm sure almost everyone has heard of had a very similar story. Among Us, actually, because when it blew up, all the streamers were playing it and all that. It was not a new game. I believe, if I remember right, it had been out for like almost a year at that point.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe
and like no one had really heard of it. I don't know. I don't know enough about to know if it was considered a failure at that point, or it's just like a again a small indie game, and maybe they did well for all things considered. But they because streamers found it and started playing in it, it blew up. And I mean I'd be surprised if anyone that is in the gaming sphere or like on Twitch, YouTube, or anything like that
That's not
haven't
funny,
heard of this game at some point because it just blew up that big.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, and that's
and
that's
it's a
everything they need.
it's a great game.
Oh yeah, and they're still updating the game. So like yeah, they hit their stride well after their initial launch, but they did it. And so it's not impossible. It's really not.
No,
I mean, you even have games like say No Man's Sky, had disastrous launch
hmm
that lost all of their lost all the trust in the consumer base, but through hard work, sticking with the game, providing free updates and expansions, they've gained that trust back. If you ask people who are playing the game these days, they say it's actually a good game.
Same thing with
They turned it around.
2077.
All right. Fallout 76.
Mm,
You know what?
still pushing that one.
I'm gonna reserve judgment for that one because I haven't played it, but I to this day I still have not heard anything good about that game.
Yeah,
But I could be wrong.
I think, and I mean, I'm right there with you. I haven't played it myself yet either, and I think it's gotten better from how it was at the beginning. But
It has. It's a better game than it was in the beginning.
I
for sure.
don't know if it's at that same level where. I mean, I don't think Bethesda, in what they've done with that game, has earned back.
I mean, it's Bethesda. We're
loss
talking
of
about what we expect.
Yeah, so it's again, and I suppose one thing should be said that we're talking about success, and a large part of that is financially. So I think there's a bit of a disclaimer to say that you can still succeed financially while still also make your consumer base extremely mad and lose their trust. Blizzard is a prime example of that, where they are doing that constantly.
So you can make garbage and still make money, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's
yeah.
I hate to say
yes.
that is a thing that works, but like Blizzard Activision is a prime example of constantly sacrificing the integrity of their games for monetization tactics, but it works because they're still making a lot of money because of how aggressive their monetization is, and it's games are psychology.
It's something, yeah.
Like
something
a designer employs human psychology in order to lead the player from one point to the next. Point them like, hey, this is your next objective. There's all sorts of small things more than just like a simple quest pointer that can help point the player in a certain direction. A lot of psychology at play. But that same psychology being used to exploit people to pay money is also sadly very effective if done well. I feel like that's a bit of a whole other tangent, but
well,
I
think you're right.
To define success, and there are different metrics by which you can define success. And financially, definitely one way to do it.
Well, and I don't know. Yes, you're right. You're right. If that's the aim, is that all it's about is the bottom line, then absolutely. I think I'll just put it this way. I think we try to approach it from a different angle than that, and that's probably why we feel the way we do. And do we pick on Blizzard a lot? Sure, we do.
It's hard not to, honestly. There's always news coming out of them.
Right. Well, but I'm sure they have investors that are just thrilled with what they do.
Oh yeah,
because that's
money.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, to bring it a bit for full circle, as Rob was talking about that story before, we have to eat too. We got to do what we got to do to keep the lights on. So obviously, even us ourselves, there is a level of we need to make sure we're making money. But
yeah, I was going to talk to you guys about that. You're going to have to start turning your lights off during the stream.
Turn off my lamp over here. Okay, can't afford to keep that one on.
No, yeah.
But I mean, that's. I think when it comes to us, at least, with the way that we define success. Like financially, that is definitely a part of it. But I do also want the games that I make to be loved. I want them to be well respected in the community, in the industry. Like I want people to look at it and say, "That's a damn good game," just for
Yeah.
its own merits.
Yeah, not necessarily just for the monetary point, but I admit I agree with Matt in that regard, where I want to put out a product that first of all brings value. First of all, it's something that I want to make. That's number one, and I feel brings value to the industry, to the community. Whatever the community that we're building, and I want them to enjoy it. Whatever the final monetary dollar sign you slap on the damn thing. Um, I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't want to make money, because yes, I want to make money.
Yeah,
I make a lot of
I
money.
like money.
Yeah, I like money just like the next guy.
I
But
think we all like money.
but yeah, I want to make a game that people can look at and be like, okay, that was a well-made game. It did what it set out to do. And as a studio, as a company, as content creators, I want folks to look at us and not. I mean, I'm pretty sure the way we look at Blizzard and Bethesda and all those studios, all right, well, how are you gonna reach into my pockets now?
Yeah, like I
You know,
yeah, like I want.
I
I
mean,
don't want to tarnish my own reputation and integrity
Yep.
purely for the sake of cash grabs. Like again, making money definitely important. We're not gonna give our games out for free. Like people are gonna be buying games, but at the same time, I'm not. I want. I
got
don't
nickel
want
and
to
dime.
be. Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to nickel and dime people. I don't want to be, making shit like Diablo Immortal.
Oof, that's so rough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about adding value. And in the case of some of these groups, they're not necessarily adding value. It's the appearance of adding value, because what they're doing is creating a product and then breaking it up into pieces so that they can sell you those pieces later on. They'll sell
Yeah.
you that base game and then sell you a bunch of pieces. Here, piece this, piece of that, piece. It's not actually truly adding value to the game by expanding the game. They just took their base game, chopped it up into pieces, and they're going to sell it to you piecemeal. Here, this is this is that. Some do that. I'm not going to say all do that, but I mean some do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, and again, circling back to the topic at hand, it's incredible that in my opinion, a small studio like that, you know, kind of had that wherewithal to be like, hey, look, this is what we got to do to keep the lights on, but let's keep, they had that kind of mental fortitude, and that's the way I think they had that mental fortitude to be like, look, let's, this didn't turn out how we wanted it to, obviously, but I from the conversation that talked with regards to Henchman and Goon, it seems like collectively the studio had the mental fortitude to continue going. Number one, obviously they're still still in business, still working on their next installment, but they also had the wherewithal to be like, what do we need to do to keep the lights on, to keep going? You know, they didn't just say, or they didn't just fall into the trap of, well, we're going to continue to do the same thing that we were doing. We're just going to, keep making a game until it's successful. They were smart about it. They're like, all right, what do we got to do? Keep the lights on and keep going and keep doing what we got to do. Well, we'll do this to keep the money coming in, and then when we're not doing that, we're not taking basically it was amounted to freelance projects and kind of creating content and product for other folks, not necessarily other studio like game studios, but other industries and things like that, and other I think that there was a mention of folks having good software engineering backgrounds, so they were doing some of that. Um, but not losing sight of their ultimate goal, which was making games. And I think that's an easy, I don't want to say trap, because it makes it sound like a bad thing, like if you're pivoting to a different industry. It's a terrible thing, and sometimes that's the direction that things go. So it's not inherently bad, at least not in my opinion. But they had to wear the kind of wherewithal to really lean into what they had to do, but also lean into the fact that, hey, this is what we want to do, and this is a goal we're going for. We're going to still go for it in the face of the first iteration flopping. At least initially, because like we said, it's bounced back. Pod is very well received. They've recouped the cost of production and have made a profit and have made a name for themselves. Most importantly, and I mean that goes without saying across every industry. It's like sometimes you got to take it on the chin, and you just got to put your head down and get back to work, I should say. And that's a really hard thing to do. That's a really hard thing to do, and to kind of get kicked in the teeth and go back into that arena, so to speak.
Yeah.
One.
Here's.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to state. I mean, one of the challenges that this particular studio that we're referencing faced early on was, and right or wrong is I don't think there really is a right or wrong. There's better ways of doing things. But one of the challenges that probably contributed a great deal to their experience is the choice to try to go self-published.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's very true.
And especially if you don't have that knowledge, those skills, that experience in your corner already, I mean, you can make a lot of mistakes that way that are going to hurt you in the short term. And
very costly, yeah.
Right. The perseverance side for them, where they really felt that, this is a good product. Yeah, okay, the launch failed. Doesn't mean the product's bad. And that takes a lot. That takes a lot. I mean, especially for a small studio, and we spend a lot of time talking about this in some of our planning meetings, our business meetings, about the, expect that we're going to have failures. I mean,
yeah,
that just, go ahead.
And that's to be expected of pretty much any creative medium. Like, if you look at famous artists, like, throughout history, you think their first things that they made were masterpieces? Hell no. They made garbage at the start. Everyone, like, when you just start out, I mean, I feel like calling it garbage is a little mean, but you're not going to be coming out the gate with your best work, because it's an iterative process. You gain your skills as you do this. So, for like almost every game studio is going to be doing this, starting out without a hit. They're going, because their first games are them at their most, I don't want to call it amateur level, because many of them may come from different varying skill levels, but it is them at their most inexperienced compared to them at their more future works.
Yeah.
So I mean, who knows? Maybe the first thing you do come out with is a major hit. Maybe that's what happened to us. It's possible, but it shouldn't be the expected result. Yeah. Because you're still learning, and you're just getting your foot in the door. So almost everyone is going to be starting out at this stage, trying to figure out, even after they put out their first game, how they still keep their lights on, because their first game probably isn't going to be enough to keep all the lights on.
Two years into this, and now you tell me that our first game is probably not going to be a hit? I mean, come on.
look, look.
And it hasn't been 2 years. It's been like a year and a half.
Yeah, but look, it's honestly, I don't want it to be our best game, because that just means we peaked at the very beginning.
Peaked.
Everything else
God,
just
that was-
downhill from there. I want it to be a
Wow.
constant, upward slope of just getting better and better. But
Yeah.
that's how it is. And at Henchman and Goon, through their GDC conference, and how that I cannot remember the name. Rob tried to
Ingvild-
pronounce it
Ingvild
earlier.
Hopen, I think.
Yes. So
And
she
Ingvild,
was-
if you ever hear this, I apologize if I butcher your name. wrong.
yeah, so a big part of it was her explaining how, they were, a lot of them taking on, like other jobs. And I think part of that was also individually, like she also knew a lot of art. So she was doing like art commissions. Some of the other people were doing a lot of other things. Essentially, the day jobs.
Yeah.
Until, because like the plan is that when you first start out, you're probably not going to be making all of that money that you need to
No.
sustain itself. And I think all the three of us know this because we're in that very stage right now, to where realistically we have to keep these day jobs to be able to keep doing this, because we can't just leave everything now and delve into this full time, because we're not making money yet. We can't afford to do that. So
We could.
you gotta,
We could,
we
but
could. It may not go well for it. It's a gamble. It's a hell of a gamble.
just
but,
gotta
like-
stop eating, man. You'll be all right.
Yeah. Just gotta
Just
stop eating
But
and drinking
everyone
that
has
water.
to eat. Everyone has to eat. You gotta keep that. You gotta be realistic about it. So like the goal is to do what you have to do to keep the lights on, keep everyone fed, and as you slowly grow, you get your first games that may be a total flop or that may see some success, but you keep it going until it gets to the point where you're like, I think we can do this, like really do it. We can leave those like day jobs or other things behind and put our all into this.
Yeah.
And it's just getting there.
I mean, that sums it up perfectly. It's sometimes certain things you gotta put in some extra work, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
we're all doing that right now.
Yeah.
We're not putting our 40 hours, an entire work week into what we're doing for our game, because we can't. It's not because we don't care about it, but we have to be realistic, because we can't afford to go all in at this stage.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, the goal, of course, is to get to a stage where we can do that. We can leave these other things behind and be like, and sustain ourselves with what this is and what we want to do.
Well, it's important to our beginning as a studio was very similar, not exactly the same, but very similar to their beginning as a studio, the studio that we're referencing.
Yeah.
Because we started out doing content for other games. Matter of fact, MMO, new MMOs, primarily in the NFT sector. And
We don't talk about that too much. I feel
but-
like last time someone threatened to unfollow when we mentioned it.
well, you own your mistakes, man. I mean, we made that mistake.
I mean, I won't call it a mistake.
A learning
Well,
experience.
here's
It
I'll
paid work.
the exact question I got from some folks. And this was, sitting down, in a meeting with, I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but I mean, with some folks with a large convention that's coming up. And talking to them about our experience and, where we come from, what we've done. Very open and honest with them about what we've, where we're coming from is designing content for other people's games, not for our own, you know what I mean? We design for them. And up until now. And when I said that we worked in the NFT sector, the very first question I got was, did you get paid?
I mean,
And I'm like,
That's a great-
well,
fair.
well,
That's a
fair
great first-
considering even our
great first
own
question.
experience.
and we got paid. We're
Yeah.
I don't no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
But-
we got
Yeah.
paid and left when it was apparent that they wouldn't be paying.
Right.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That is a funny question to get though, because it's like, damn, it's that common, huh?
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, look, we've talked about it before. The whole NFT scene has always been very shady, so I'm sure there's a lot of I'm sure it's a very common story where people don't get paid properly.
Yep. Oh yeah. I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, but again, like that was us doing what we had to do to keep the lights on. Were any of us like jazzed to be like, wow, NFT project, all right? Like, no. None of us were jazzed about it. We're like,
Wahoo.
okay, they got money for us, we'll do it. But that's just the things you gotta do when you're starting out. You gotta be realistic. You gotta keep the lights on, so you gotta get that money.
Yep.
So, that actually, I think that brings us into a really interesting spot, Rob. The off the reference topic a little bit, because following along with the progression of what happened with that studio, we're kind of in that same space right now, because we do have a big project that is an internal project that we're working on. Just not to a point where we're ready to start talking about it, like open details talking about it yet.
We're getting there.
But
Hopefully soon we'll have some announcements, but yeah.
Right, but we also have been discussing other options and things that we want to work on. So, wow, I just lost them. Hold on a second. Mm-hmm.
Are we back?
You will be in just a second here. For whatever reason, it booted you both out. There we go. Okay.
Hey guys, guess what? Streamlabs back at it again with just kicking people out.
Pretty much.
It always happens when the ads are running. So I don't know
Really?
if I don't know if it's directly a Streamlabs thing or if it's a Twitch and Streamlabs thing.
Ads kicking us off. That's weird.
Yeah. Canon Stream, absolutely.
That's right.
But yeah, we are working. Well, we're not working on anything officially yet, but we are looking at creating some complementary content.
Yes. Yeah. We'll talk about that more in the future, I feel, because we still got some work to do there and kind of ironing out those details. But yeah, I mean, again, kind of to use what's already been said, we as a studio, as a small studio, are doing what needs to be done to keep the lights on and keep things moving forward, because we have a product that we want to bring to fruition, and we're going to do what we have to do to make that happen. And we're super excited about it. And obviously, when we can talk about it more with you guys, hopefully, I'm almost positive, but I'm hoping you guys will be as excited about it as we are.
I am bursting at the seams to want to talk about. And there's so many exciting things. Not just
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of work and behind the scenes for both the stream, studio stuff. Like there's been a lot of work going on, and it's
Expect some exciting stuff.
yeah. I mean that's the best way I
Well,
can put it. It's just a lot going on.
Putting it as shortly as possible. Yes. Expect some exciting things soon.
I think we I'm Unity.
Oh yeah, that.
Okay, yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, yeah. This is something fairly recent
Huh.
and has blown up in the game developing community. So, the Unity engine, a very popular game engine, probably the next biggest one next to the Unreal Engine. So this isn't a small thing. They recently, and I've been delving into this today. They recently made a change to their to their like pricing, packaging, like their and all that to help, pretty much how they make money from the developers that use the engine. Because obviously, every game engine is going to find a way to make some money off the people who use it. Because that's just the transaction. The common thing is the revenue sharing. After the game makes a certain amount of money, they start to share X amount of revenue of the money they make from sales. That's the common thing. But Unity, honestly, the more I'm looking into it, there's more things going on. They've done more than just one thing. The big thing, though, is there's a price for per new install of a game, which means, and this is not to be confused because there's some confusion at the start, partly because Unity didn't communicate it well enough to where at first they didn't communicate well enough and people were thinking for every install of a game. So like say you buy a game, you install it on your computer, the developer is going to be charged X amount. Then if you were to uninstall it, maybe you played it, got bored of it, but then maybe like a year later, like I want to revisit that game, re-download again, people thought that they would get charged for that again. That was a bit of a miscommunication on Unity's part, but they are still going to be charging per install on, say, you have a laptop, that's going to be charged if you install on that. You have, like, your smartphone device. That device is also going to be charged to the developer for install on that. And for a free user of Unity, because they have, like, subscription plans and stuff as well, it's going to be 20 cents per install. And so that is pretty hefty if you are a indie developer. So a lot of people haven't been happy with that. Beyond even that, Unity removed their cheapest subscription plan, which was Unity Plus, and that would cost you about $400 a year. So obviously, if you're like if you're an indie dev, that's probably what you're going to go to. If
400 boats.
Yeah, 400. Which obviously that's not cheap, especially if you're a small indie. But they removed that. The next cheapest thing you can go for is what it's called, Unity Pro. You want to know the price difference for that one? This one costs you $2,000 a year. So what was that, 5 times the price?
Yeah,
so
500% increase.
Free, or you're paying 5 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a pretty
plus 20% or 20 cents per download.
Well, okay. So the per install price actually lowers the higher subscription tier you have.
Okay.
And they also have sell brackets, essentially, where
the tier system.
Sell a certain amount and it's this much. You sell more, it lowers a little bit. So pretty much the more it's being sold and downloaded, the lower you're paying. The problem is that there's a very large difference between this free user bit, like 20 cents per, and the ones that come after. So it's very obvious that they're trying to use that to push people towards the cheapest $2,000 subscription fee.
Yeah, because $2,000 is cheap.
Yeah, and so a lot of people aren't happy about it. Among Us is They haven't done it yet, but they're planning to essentially, for a time, pull the game from the marketplace in order to explore their options. I believe they've said it's going to be essentially going to try to rebuild the game in another engine, so they don't have to deal with that price gouge right there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Among Us, that's big. A lot of people are buying and downloading that game, and that's a lot of extra money they'd be paying out. You
Mhm.
know, Unreal doesn't do that, so
No,
Yeah.
no, they don't actually do that.
Yeah,
Obviously, they do have the monetization after a certain gross revenue, but
yeah,
again, that's par for the course. You know,
Well,
using their
yeah.
software for free.
there's a little bit more to that as well because
Mm.
of the contract updates and the GitHub thing. You want to talk a little bit
So yeah,
about
the
that?
GitHub. Oh yeah, they
Yes,
did pull that off
yes.
as well.
So, what Unity had done in the past when they've changed like terms of services and certain agreements and stuff like that. Once upon a time, they let people choose which plan to stay with if they were under a certain plan before they announced a change like this. And to be perfectly transparent, they used to have a GitHub where they would store different versions of their terms of services and all these things in. So they were super transparent about it. And so I was just reading the Reddit about what they've done. So they've silently removed that GitHub after, and they didn't do it with this announcement. I think they did it a while back, but the timing would suggest that they removed it because they were planning of this move. Because they're, I believe that people who are working under the Unity Plus plan that's being removed, I believe it is that they have a essentially amount of time to
Surprise, motherfucker.
either they won't be able to keep doing that. Essentially, they're gonna
Yeah.
have to choose to either upgrade to Unity Pro or just stop altogether. And so it's yeah, they're not being as open or as transparent as they used to be. So a hell of a lot of lost trust with their developers,
And it's
as
not the
well as
first
them.
time they've done that either.
Yeah, and so they're ruining the trust with their developers and like trying to make more money out of them at the same time. Like here's the thing that baffles me the most, because you have a company like, say, Wizards of the Coast. They do something shitty for their environment, to their community, but they're kind of able to get away with it because Wizards of the Coast D&D, they're at the top of the industry when it comes to tabletop role-playing games. Like D&D, it has competition. You have like Pathfinder, you have Cyberpunk Red, but they're lesser competition. They aren't rivaling D&D. So they can I hate to say it, but they can kind of afford to pull shit like that. But Unity,
Yeah.
Unity is not in that spot. They are not at the top of the game because, I mean, they're up there. That's for damn sure. But Unreal Engine, they have to contend with Unreal Engine. And Unreal Engine has continued to be. I don't know the financial records and stuff, but from everything I hear, it sounds like it kind of outperforms them in several
Oh
areas.
yeah.
So it's like people are going to be leaving Unity in droves, especially the indie community, because these changes hurt the indie devs the absolute most. Because if you're a free user, there's that 20 cents per install, a new install, I'll say, for each device of a person. Apparently, reinstallations don't count according to Unity. Not many people trust them too much though, so we'll see. But that hurts. Removal of the 400 subscription service to all the way to a 2,000 one. Yeah, that's a lot of
That's a big
indie
jump.
devs. Yeah, a lot of indie devs, understandably, can't afford that kind of yearly expense. So again, they're going to be leaving for other engines.
I don't know. I don't know, man. I kind of feel like, that whole thing kind of spells out trust, doesn't it? I mean, we're gonna increase the initial cost of our product for you to use by 500%. And then we're gonna charge you 20 cents for every install of using our IP, even though the reality of it is it doesn't cost us a damn thing. But
Yeah.
every time somebody installs it, even though they've only bought the game once, so they only paid for it once, but every time they install it on a new device, 20 cents, baby. Cha-ching,
Okay,
cha-ching.
A bit of a clarification. The 20 cents per new install only applies to people who are under the free plan. If you're at the Unity Pro plan, the lowest would be 15 cents per install, or the highest would be 15 cents. If you're selling, like, say, under 100,000, but the lowest goes to 2 cents. So again, like, that's much, much lower. So you can kind of see where they've done this in a way that they're trying to push people away from the free plan because of that 20 cents. They're like, hey, you don't want to be paying that much, do you? Because unlike all the other plans, where every other plan has that price lower depending on just the volume of your installs and sales. But the 20 cents for free users, that doesn't change no matter how much you ship. So they're like, hey, you don't want to be doing that, do you? Well, go ahead and get that subscription service for $2,000 at the cheapest.
Jesus Christ.
Which for just so people know, the next step after that, which obviously is not meant for indie devs or anything like that, more for bigger companies, is about $5,000 a year. And granted, I don't know how many people or teams you can keep on a single plan. So I don't know, at the size of a certain studio, if you're going to have to pay extra on top of your current plan, like a modification of your plan to do a bigger team and stuff like that. I don't know those details, but none of this is cheap. And Unity is very popular among indie devs. And we're seeing, Among Us is, Innersloth Devs, that's the team. They're looking at, exploring the other options, removing Among Us from the marketplace for a temporary time in order to make changes. Cult of the Lamb from Massive Monster, another popular indie game that is similarly going to be removing their game from marketplaces. Slay the Spire from Megacrit. Like, a lot of people hate this decision so much because it so needlessly targets the devs that they're like, no, this is going to hurt us, so they actually have to take their games off of the marketplace. It's utterly ridiculous. Yeah, and like, one thing
There's no other way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's baffling that this is what's their decision.
Really
If
no other way
if
to
they
put
needed
that.
money, like, I feel like the normal thing would have been like, upping the revenue share so that they take a bigger cut. Now, I felt like that would be a normal thing rather than this, charging per install thing, which is a very odd thing, as well as removing an entire subscription tier. And
So I
go
just
ahead.
I just want to quickly throw another stone. The way I understand it, the current CEO for Unity has a spectacular resume, hailing from EA.
Everyone's favorite games
Ooh,
publisher.
Red flag. Red flag.
EA makes lots of money, though. I mean,
Yeah, and yeah.
They're also synonymous with cancer.
ouch. Ouch.
It's just saying.
Yeah, and
I suppose if we're gonna get sued, we might as well get sued now, right?
Right? Exactly.
yeah, and like honestly, I think one of the biggest shames of this because different game engines are good at doing different things. Like, and I think the biggest thing is for 2D games, the Unreal Engine it can do a lot and it can do a lot great. But as far as your options go for 2D games, Unreal Engine, even Unreal Engine 5, is not your best choice, unfortunately.
No.
And Unity has been one of those, it's been one of those very much preferred options for a 2D games, which naturally, again, attracts a lot of indie developers. And so to have the biggest engine for those types of games do this type of thing that most clearly targets indie developers, that's fucking huge. And I've been looking at what other people have been saying, like what are other good game engines for 2D games, because Unreal is sadly not great at it.
No, not yet.
So
They're more geared towards the photorealistic 3D kind of aspects of things. One of their biggest steps towards profitability and kind of just getting more eyes on the product, aside from Fortnite.
yeah,
That let's not go there. Fortnite, obviously in the game sphere, but also getting into film and television, TV shows.
oh yeah,
Notably, The Mandalorian. I can't remember exactly what episodes they were. I think they were towards the end of like season 2. There was large scale VFX that were done using the Unreal Engine, and I myself used it. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
yeah. I feel like that's the thing. Not many people know that the Unreal Engine, a game engine, is actually being used in the movie making industry for its ability on visual effects, which is very interesting. But it's working, and that's one of the things that the Unreal Engine excels at. But
Yeah.
it's when it comes to 2D games, they're not great at that. Unity is fairly good, but they're making decisions to attack indie developers who, a lot of them go towards 2D games. And so, from what I've been able to tell, there are a couple other engines that are good. The first one is Godot or Godot. I'll just type it in chat how it's spelt because I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. But that's like one of the other ones that are fairly good at doing 2D games.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure many people don't know about that engine or some of the other ones. Like, I feel like the mainstream engines, the two things people know the most is Unreal and Unity. If you're going to be looking at, like, say, job descriptions in the games industry, those are the two engines that employers will be looking for experience in. So, you don't commonly see these other engines that employers desire. So, again, this comes as a big hit because there may be employers who are looking for people with experience in the Unity engine, but as a small-time developer who, you may just be trying to build your resume or your experience set, having Unity be so unfriendly to you, it's going to push you away. And Unity is pushing a lot of people away to Unreal or these other engines. They're pretty much just pushing everyone towards their competition because, again, unlike Wizards of the Coast, who is at the top of their game, they Unity
doesn't
has
have a stranglehold on engines.
Yeah, they don't have a stranglehold on the in their industry, so they do have competition to worry about. So when they pull a move like this, people are gonna flock to their competition.
It's just giving money away. That's it.
Yeah, and so honestly, I do foresee them rolling back a lot of this. The question
For
is,
now, anyway.
yeah, for now, that's the big thing because a lot of times, every time I see a company making a decision like this that just sparks huge outrage in their community. Like, okay, well, we're listening. Thank you for your feedback, and we can all come through this together and stronger. Ha 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 ha. They're gonna pull that lip service and pretend like they're the good guys, and then a little bit down the line, they're gonna do something else. It's almost I feel like get my tinfoil hat on. I feel like it's just almost planned so that when they do something in the future that's also harmful, it's like it goes under the radar a little because they pulled back from this massive thing that they did that got everyone mad.
Hey, look, we're not so bad. Oh,
Yeah, it's like we're gonna make you pay like 4 times what you did before. Like what? No, that's not fair. Okay, I'll listen. I'll help you out.
and
2 times more.
real quick, thank you as well, Manila Bear, for the follow, and welcome to the chat as a first time chatter.
Yeah, welcome to the stream. You came at the point to hear us rant about the Unity engine. Mainly me, because I've been delving into this today, and it just baffles and frustrates me.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be becoming a very commonplace. I don't want to say tactic. It's a common occurrence where a lot of these larger companies are starting to kind of do this stuff where it seems like they're just very disconnected from the people that are using their product or service or what have you. It's like you're not paying attention. You're not picking up what people are putting down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's such a damn shame because there's so many good games made on the Unity engine, and so many of those devs are looking to pull their games from marketplaces because of this. Like another fantastic game that I've mentioned before on the podcast, and I believe it was Omen Garrus who's also played it. Chained Echoes, fantastic indie game in the style of the old school JRPGs, like old school Final Fantasy and stuff. That was also developed on the Unity engine, and I I would be heartbroken to see that go off the marketplace because it's a fantastic game, and that developer deserves every bit of success that they get. And like there's just so many good things that are from the Unity engine, and they're ruining it for themselves. That their devs are taking their stuff off the market in protest, and also so they don't get charged out the ass for their own game. So it's crazy. It's baffling that this is what Unity is doing.
There's a whole there's a whole list of reasons why this could be. Let's just go there for a moment. I mean, why do you think they did this? Now, let alone the fact that, okay, I'm baffled by it. But I mean, why? What is your speculation on this? Why do you think they did this?
So, I mean, I guess the most surface level thing is money, but going deeper into that as to why they need the monies that bad, like, because it does seem something more than just a simple, we want to we want to maximize profits. There's always going to be things like that where they think of a new way to get money and they just small things. But this is a drastic step. The removal of the 400 a year plan for the only other paid plan being 2,000, and this pay per install plan. Those are drastic changes to their monetization. And so, I mean, there's nothing I can say for certain that wouldn't be speculation. And like Greg, you were talking about this earlier. We were talking like just before we went live, where maybe they're struggling for money. I don't know. The thing is, because like they're still a very popular game engine, and they do have that revenue share. I I don't know why they would be hurting for money that bad that they'd make a decision like this.
Yeah, it
It's
makes little sense.
yeah, so that's why it's so confusing. It's not like they're failing. At least from what I know, they've had their blunders, sure, but it doesn't. They've never appeared to me to be like a failing game engine, and this is like a move of desperation. Maybe it is, but it's I don't know. It's very strange that
Enron
they do
never appeared to be failing to anybody either before they failed. But
Damn, my man went all the way back to that's a throwback for people who don't know. Greg, your age is showing. Then again, mine too.
Well,
I actually know what that means.
there is such a huge list out there. I mean, you've got, and not to go on a tangent here, but I mean, you got Enron, you got Blockbuster, you got Circuit City, you've got BlackBerry. I mean, there's a long list of companies that at one point in time, well, Sears is a little different story, but same principle, because they were headed in that direction. Awesome. Thank you, Manila Bear. I want to shift gears for just a minute. I don't want to, completely, I've got my ideas about what's going on there too, but what do you think that this means? And what do you guys think that this means for the small studios, the small devs, indie studios, or even smaller yet, the people who are just jumping into this and starting, they got ideas and plans and they, we're looking at Unity. What do you think is going to happen there?
I mean, personally, I think many are going to think otherwise of going to Unity, because even if there is still a free plan, there's a point where I'm sure many people are like, when I grow, I'm going to need better resources, a better version of what I'm using. So naturally, like, as your team grows, you probably pay for a subscription fee. But if this is the way Unity's handling things, and you see that before you even go in, you're gonna think twice, because you never know when you're years into development for a game using the Unity engine. And I know there are many devs who are experiencing this right now, where you're years into it, too late to simply pivot to a different engine. And then, maybe a couple months out from your release, they make a change like this. And that totally changes the landscape of how your release is going to go.
Well, and they completely remove the potential for you to go back and use an earlier version that has a different deal on it.
Exactly. So they're losing trust, and when you're making games, that's multi-year process. It's a commitment. And so when you see a company like Unity make this kind of change just out of the blue, these changes, by the way, are going to be going into effect at the beginning of 2024. So January 1st, 2024, these changes are going to effect. And so when they make these huge changes so quickly and at their developers' expense, where's the trust? If you see that and you're a beginner just starting out, you see them do that, well, you're going to be looking at, okay, what are my other options? Because I don't know what's going to happen during my own development. If they're going to do this, what else are they going to do while I'm developing my game? So they're going to be looking at other engines that will suit what they want to do, whether it's Unreal Engine or Godot, or however it's pronounced, or any other engine out there. They're going to be looking at those.
Yeah. They just push money. They just push revenue to their competition, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, they are, especially the indie developers who
And with
can't afford
regards,
these expensive subscription plans or these charges for the installs.
Yep,
You know,
pretty
because
much.
they have a hard enough time. Again, back to our like initial podcast theme of starting out without a hit. You know, making ends meet when
Yeah,
you're just just scraping by as a fledgling studio.
yep.
You're gonna see all these nickels and dimes from the engine and be like,
The fuck?
no thanks, I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm gonna go somewhere else where I'm respected. My money's respected. You know, I can do the same things. You know, and the sad part is there are a lot of developers, there are a lot of indie developers, you know, both small studios and just single person developers who spent years learning Unity and learning the ins and outs, but also evangelizing for the engine, like talking about, hey,
Yeah,
look, you can do this, you can do this. This is how this this goes. This is a great tool here. This is there's so many people that put a lot of work, unpaid, I might add, work into just making the engine a known entity and the company a known company. Um, and it just kind of feels like a slap in the face, I'm sure, to them.
oh yeah,
I mean, there are whole communities. Like when I was living in New York City, um, there were meetups and like whole events geared around the you just a Unity engine. People we'd get together, we'd code together, we'd develop together. We'd do stuff with the engine and learn and kind of grow and connect. They've kind of just shot that shit in the foot.
yeah. Because like, here's the thing, I've been considering learning Unity. Like okay, so for those who don't know, I'm currently studying game design, and my education so far has focused on using the Unreal Engine, but I have learned a little bit of Unity. And so knowing what Unity is capable of and thinking I could be interested in making games in that are suited to that, I was like interested in learning how to make Unity. And then they do this, and it's like, nope, not anymore. Like hell, just the other day, I was my the team I'm working with met with one of our instructors to kind of talk about how things are going for us in our
Mhm.
project. And we were talking about camera work, and he actually pulls up an example from a Unity game in the Unity editor and the function that they have for one of their cameras. And like, this is really good for a 2D game. And he's explaining to us how it functions and how we want to try to emulate that kind of thing in the Unreal. And it's like Unity, it's a good engine. It has a lot of functions that Unreal doesn't because it specializes in other things. It has a place.
Mhm.
That makes it such a damn shame that they're pushing people away like this because it's a quality engine.
It's. I mean, I'm sure. Again, I'm sure there are more layers to this that we haven't delved into.
Oh yeah,
Um, but yeah, the initial the initial kind of reception is, for me, feels like a cash grab for whatever reason. They could be hemorrhaging money, they're blah blah blah, whatever. Um, it could just be feels like a cash grab essentially. Um, but I mean,
Uh,
that's the decision that they're going with.
so Garrus, their post was pretty clear in your opinion. Care to explain that?
are you talking about the more recent post from Unity, which was made
Their Twitter post, you mean, Garrus?
yeah, like earlier today, where they clarified on a lot of things? Because I know their initial announcement got a lot of blowback, and they made a clarification post. Clarification, I'll say, because when it comes to companies and their PR, a lot of times they'll claim miscommunication when they are actually just rolling something back because it got so much, blowback from the community. But
Yeah.
because that was one of the big things where they clarified the new installs rather than like you won't get charged for like someone who reinstalls on their computer like 20 times. But
I mean, if you reinstall it 20 times, you have another problem.
well, I mean, here's the thing, and I mean that was a big concern for a lot because when someone gets upset at a game, there's review bombing, there's
Yeah.
all sorts of things
Yeah.
some very salty people will do. And if they knew that they could, cost you money by doing it, you bet your ass they'll do it.
True.
Imagine
Wow,
you're an
I
indie
could.
dev.
Yeah, I could see that. Oof.
Yeah, like imagine you're an indie dev and there are just 5 people who are just pissed off for whatever reason at your game, and they're gonna download the game, uninstall it, reinstall it, uninstall, reinstall it, getting charged 20 cents for each of those. So yes, they did clarify that that wasn't going to be the case, and it's just that the new installs they're calling it. So each, I'm guessing that would be interpreted as your first install per device. But
sounds like it, yeah.
Again, that still racks up a lot of money, as well as the change to the subscription plan, the removal of their previous terms of service on that GitHub, meaning less transparency. It's a lot, honestly. And even with this clarification, people are still not happy. So I again, this is very recent news and it's still developing. So
yeah.
It's going to be interesting seeing how things progress since this clarification came just recently. And so I imagine we'll probably be seeing a lot of the devs, like, Cult of the Lamb, Among Us, who are saying that they're going to pull their games from the marketplace, see how they respond to this clarification. Whether they, bail on their plans to pull from the marketplace and explore other options, or if they keep on with those plans because this clarification wasn't good enough because of all the other things they're doing still. And how much Unity may pull back some of this. It's because this is big for the industry, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how this progresses because we're just at the start of it.
So, I have a couple of speculative ideas for you.
Go right ahead. Speculate away.
As soon as I check out what Garrus posted.
Yeah, sure. He says, sure, they're going to start charging per install for customers who make over a certain threshold, similar to Wizards of the Coast in their OGL response. While they can do that, the erasing of their TOS and changing it for all existing software that uses the Unity engine, not communicating to their users before this, and, more importantly, not thinking, or maybe purposely, looking at those game devs who use Game Pass or any subscription type service, Epic, GOG, any other one, and now counting those, directly impacts the small game studios. And character limits.
So I definitely appreciate that, Garrus.
Thank you for the clarification, Garrus. Appreciate that.
I want to throw these two thoughts out there for you guys because here's potential, okay? And this is just my thinking on this when I'm looking at everything that's going on with these guys right now. All the information leading up to where we're at right now there's a possibility of a couple of things. I mean, it could be something else entirely. There's a possibility of a couple of things that comes to mind. Number one is that this is a company that is undercapitalized and over-leveraged. And they're looking at a market downturn because people are spending less money. Sales are going down. And that has put them into a little bit of a panic mode. They've got to look at, okay, now how do we increase our revenue to, keep the lights on kind of thing. Because we don't have the capital to weather the storm here because we don't know how long the storm is going to be. interest rates are high, so we don't want to borrow more money because we're then stacking up expensive debt. I mean, money is in that sense, money is a commodity. I mean, you buy and sell money all the time, and right now, money's expensive. Where just 5 years ago, money was cheap. I mean, everything you did, you'd leverage it because you could get the money cheap. No big deal. You don't have to spend your own money. Spend somebody else's money. Not the case right now. And then you also have to look at what else is going on in the marketplace, and money is going to not only be not cheap, but it is also going to be scarce coming up in the very near future. Within the next year, we're going to run into some credit crunches. So that's one option. Option two is they're cutting out the fat and beefing up the bottom line for the company. Yes, we're going through the sales piece and all that stuff, but they're really looking at how do we increase our margins so that we look fat for a merger.
That is a good point. They might be looking to sell.
That is an interesting one.
Huh. Did not consider that.
I mean, in this day and age, mergers, buyouts are happening all the time. I mean, hell,
Yeah, I mean,
Blizzard,
Microsoft,
Activision,
yeah.
are huge, and Microsoft is buying them.
Yep.
So it's again pure speculation, but that I mean, it's definitely an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could always just be a plain old cash grab because
Could be
a CEO that comes from EA, I wouldn't put it past them either.
Well, that's actually part of what brought me to the idea there. Number one would be, I think I would lean more towards the merger, but I'm not ruling out the financial situation. They did a riff back in May of this year.
Can you explain that acronym there?
RAF means
essentially you're basically doing. I gotta look for that acronym myself, but essentially you're doing a refi.
Reduction in force.
Oh, well, there you're doing. Okay.
Does that mean
reduction
like they're
in workforce.
intentionally trying to push people away, like laid off?
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, they're probably, I guess, similar what Greg said.
So maybe
they're cutting down on folks.
So in that sense, they're intentionally trying to drive the indie devs away.
Well, I don't think it has anything to do. It doesn't have anything to do with the indie devs, is what I'm getting at. I don't think it has anything to do with the customer base, the indie devs. It's purely, survival mode piece, or fatten up the company for a merger so they can get the stock prices to where they want them to be, whether that's high or low, doesn't really matter. It's just they want to get this, in the case of a merger, they want to make the company look healthy,
better,
even though maybe it's not. And in the case of financial trouble, it's really, they're going into survival mode. We're going to start cutting our workforce. We're going to start cutting costs as much as we possibly can so that we can stay ahead of the shrinking market. And hopefully, like I said, cash is king. Hopefully we have enough coming in to cover our cost of doing business and whatever debt we have. That's the piece that walking into this not knowing is how much debt do they have? Because if they are heavy in debt, I mean, it is possible that they drained out all their cash through the last 3 years with the whole pandemic stuff going on. And they're really facing a market downturn with no money in hand and looking at how much it's going to cost to borrow money to leverage to keep their business going. And they're thinking, we've got to do everything we can to squeeze every bit of money we can out of this and probably hold out long enough that we can get a good offer from somebody else and just merge the company. Or go under. It's potential.
Yeah. And Garrus brought up a good point that I wasn't aware of this, but apparently they are in talks or they're in a particular agreement with Apple. Garrus, if you can kind of expand on that a little bit. I had no idea that Unity was actually kind of in bed with Apple. That is news to me, but I will completely admit to not really having kept up too much with Unity over the last couple of years. I did at one point because I was using their engine, but since I've switched over to Unreal, I've kind of stopped.
We gotta just bring Garrus in here.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
Looking at it now, at least from what I can see, the first thing that pops up for me is that Apple's Vision Pro mixed reality headset uses Unity software. So they partnered for that.
That explains that.
So that seems like the first part of their partnership. Trying to find out like what other aspects to this partnership exist. I don't know if Garrus is able to. 2022, they came to an agreement with Apple to port the engine and be used for their game devs on the silicon-based hardware.
And that was in 2020, not 2022.
Yeah, I am.
Did I say 2022? My
Yeah.
mistake.
I am personally going to lean in the direction of saying they're looking at a merger. More in merger meaning that potentially Apple is going to buy Unity.
That honestly
That's
seems like
purely
a fair
an
bet at this point.
opinion, by the way.
But no, I mean it's a sound opinion based on the information given, and okay. I mean that's not necessary. I mean, honestly, and I know we're way way off topic from what we were just started, but this is, I guess, the second half. A lot of companies that you normally wouldn't necessarily think game development or game industry are starting to buy up pieces of the industry. I mean, with Microsoft buying a bunch of things, that's kind of expected considering the Xbox portion of Microsoft. But you got Amazon doing the same thing. I mean, they bought Twitch. There are a bunch of companies definitely maneuvering for a piece of the gaming industry in some capacity, because I think folks have realized how lucrative it is.
Oh yeah, gaming industry is massive. Like, talking about industries that have boomed over the past couple decades, gaming industry just it's also incredible how big it's become in a in terms of throughout just the history of businesses, relatively short amount of time. So it boomed incredibly quickly. There's a lot of money in it, and so yeah, it makes sense that everyone's trying to get in now.
Yeah, that'd be my guess, Garrus, is they're fattening it up. I mean, it doesn't mean that it is going to lead to a merger, but looking at all the things that have happened, where my mind goes is they're looking to fatten the company up to make it look pretty.
Which sucks because it's coming at the cost of the developer community and indie devs. So it's a move that actively hurts the industry.
I'm sure the investors feel differently.
Yeah, I get it. It's a different world up there. It's just kind of sad that if those speculations are true, that reasons like those are just it's terrible.
I have the information that we're looking at right here. I don't have any back end information on this, so I mean, I'm just speculating. Period.
Yeah, Garrus is saying by setting a low threshold, though, 200K, they really are going for all the small studios, though. Like, yeah, they are. This is very targeted towards
because most studios don't most studios don't break $1 million or even $500,000. Like they just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I noticed. I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about this before the stream tonight. If you look at there's not a lot of parity in this video game piece versus the TTRPG world when it comes to those licensing pieces in the revenue shares, because the revenue share targets are a lot higher on the TTRPG side than they are in the video game world. The video game world, your revenue share kicks in a lot quicker than on the TTRPG side.
Yeah. If it's not someone, it's someone else doing some shit.
Yeah, there's constant news coming out of the games industry because, again, it's boomed so hugely. There's a lot of money in it, and where there's money, there's sadly corruption. So you're gonna see some shady stuff going on.
Where there's
So
blood, there's
behind
sharks,
the scenes
right?
just anti-consumer, or in this case, mostly anti-developer decisions.
Yeah, the industry has to go on, and the companies have to.
Yeah.
There is a cycle that's there. I mean, the companies have to make money. That's first and foremost. Companies stay in business; they have to make money. But there are some questionable decisions that have been made by some of the big players. I would recently that really have to make you step back and look at it and ask questions about, okay, why? Either what do they see that we don't? Because there's that. I mean, there's reasons behind why they make the decisions that they do, or just plain outright, what is this? Why?
Yeah, it's
So
like it's easy to convince ourselves they're just plain stupid when they do this, and maybe they are, but sometimes it's like, what is the reason for doing something like this?
oh, absolutely, Garrus. You are absolutely that is exactly what it is about. It's just the not knowing part are these truly for selfish reasons, or is this more of a survival mode thing where they've ran into some problems and right now they're just looking at how are we going to weather the storm?
Yeah, and again, that factors into the trust issue. Like with this, a lot of people are losing trust in Unity as a company. Because again, you don't know when you're years into a project and they make a huge change like this.
Mhm.
Because God, I do not envy the people who are in that position right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I say my thinking is they're fattening it up to make it look pretty. That way, whoever ends up holding the reins at the end of the day gets to be the hero. Hey,
Pretty much.
we're either gonna let you use this engine, we're going to open this back up and make it accessible and be the heroes, or we bought it, neener.
Pretty much. And here's the thing. Like I agree with everything that Garrus just said. Like frankly, they're gonna try to make as much money as they can. And with regards to what Unity is used for and the games Unity is used for, yeah, they beat out UE5. I mean, it's not even a competition. Let's be honest. But yeah, for the most part, most studios that can afford to will probably stay with Unity. Whether this is a play to fan up the company for a merger, or whether this is a cash grab by Unity themselves. We like to hem and haw, but we
It
see
does,
only
Garrus.
one side of that picture, so to speak.
Yeah, and
yeah, I mean, getting rid of your TOS that you kept really open and really transparent for years, suddenly, it doesn't look good. Good look, not at all.
yeah, and here's an interesting question, because I actually saw this asked, because I looked at the Unity Twitter post. I'm going to continue calling it Twitter. I don't care. That's X. It's Twitter. We'll sell that right now. But
Elon must be damned.
Pretty much.
But yeah, it's so
Yeah,
I was looking
agreed
at
on that point.
so I was looking at the Twitter post of their clarification, and I saw one person who asked, when it comes to a developer who has a publisher and they're using the Unity engine, who's going to foot that cost of the of that whatchamacallit, the charges for install? Who's footing that cost? And I that's a legit question to ponder, because are publishers gonna handle that cost for the developers, or are they just gonna say, hey, that wasn't our agreement, we said we'd pay for a subscription plan, or something like that, but you're on your own for that one. It's that there's gonna be a lot of I think there's gonna be a lot of renegotiating of contracts between developers and publishers because of that as well, because that's a whole nother aspect to change the relationship and a whole new expense.
Yeah, if you read through it, and there is an access link. We can put that up later on the Discord for anybody that's interested. There is an access link, or actually, I think Garrus, you already put a link up, I believe, in the Discord. There is an access link where you can go and have a look at the updated agreement and the tiers system that is laid out there. And it is pass through. So if you're not the dev, you're the publisher, the fees are still based on the dev's position, not you as the publisher. You still have to pay it, but it's based on what the sales actually are. So I definitely, there's going to be some contract negotiation going on for sure, because I mean, these publishers are not going to absorb that cost. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and again, this makes major. This is a major move in the entire industry, because Unity isn't a small engine. A lot of people use it, and this is a huge change in their monetization.
Yeah, quite a shift. Not necessarily just in their monetization. All that is a big deal. For me, it's the removal of the TOS and the transparency piece.
Yeah,
that's just like, what? Hold on, wait a minute.
Yeah, they're upping the prices on things essentially by adding this pay per install and the removal of their cheapest subscription tier. So the cost to use it going up, and the loss of trust and transparency by removing that GitHub. It's again, it's all baffling, because it's like, who was thinking that this was going to be a good idea? And again, we're going into why, and there's so many reasons we could speculate why. But it's ridiculous, because Old Man Garrus bring up a lot of big games that will not have to pay lots of money. Pokemon Go, Cities, Subnautica, Hollow Knight,
Oh my God,
RimWorld,
yes.
Hearthstone, Cuphead. A lot of big games that have been installed very many times would use Unity. And so going forward, starting January 1st of 2024, they're going to have to start paying this.
That they are.
Yep. However, with that, I think that's a good stopping point for us today.
Actually,
it's a good point to talk about Friday's episode.
Friday's episode of the VOR. We have, so for those of you who are not aware, we also do content streaming in addition to this stream, which is more of a talk show. Right now, every Friday, we stream a Cyberpunk Red game, the BOR. And this coming Friday, we get to see the results from the previous episode, where our team actually turned over one of its team members to a nefarious organization that kind of like government, they stand there and
Worse than the
say,
government.
"We're here to help." And apparently our team believes them. So
Ah, shit. Shots fired. Fucking shots fired, man. Well done, Greg. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, so that we do every Friday. We do also do solo adventures, dealing with the life path piece. You as well. Thank you very much for being here tonight, Oman Garrus, and look forward to seeing you Friday.
Yep.
So we do dive into the life path piece for anybody who is familiar with the Cyberpunk Red system, to give the players and the characters themselves kind of an opportunity to showcase who they really are, how they came into the position they're in, that type of thing. And coming very soon to a Twitch stream called Razzmatazz near you, we are going to be adding a Alien stream as well. That will be coming up probably within the next month and a half. We'll be announcing the times, dates piece for that, and launching that out. We're going to do that with a little bit more of a cinematic style play. So it'll be even more heavy into the storytelling piece, than what the BOR is. But yeah, that's coming. Back to you, Rob.
But yeah, so with that on Friday, next Wednesday, we will be having another episode 20, actually, our 20th episode. Oof, wow. We've been at this 20 episodes in.
There's like 40 some episodes in our YouTube. So there you are, buddy.
Yeah. So I was just saying, episode 20 of the update log. We'll be diving into kind of piggybacking off of this week's episode, and going into some community-based discussions on the future of the gaming communities and the changes that have happened over the years. Because there have been some big changes, as we've seen in the companies, we've also seen in the communities. So we'll be kind of diving into that next Wednesday. But yeah, so that's what you guys have to expect.
Fantastic. And I think we will raid into Stormy tonight.
Nice.
If I can pull them up before this ad runs. I'm trying to save everybody from being pulled into that thing. There we are. Okay, start the raid. Thank you again for everybody being here tonight, and look forward to seeing you Friday.
Yeah, you guys have a good night. Thank you.
Yeah, see you guys next time.
Off we go.